Okay, so welcome back to the second part of creating a horizontal menu in CSS. We've already, done some styling to this, but now we're going to actually make it look like a horizontal menu as opposed to just a few links that have been shoved next to each other. So we've already targeted the list items within the UL, and we've displayed them inline. If you've followed the tutorial and you've gone over to Internet Explorer, which you haven't already, you should do. Go over to Internet Explorer, load it up, and see that it most likely doesn't work depending on which browser version you're using. If you're using something, I'm watching this a year down the line, then it might be fully supported. But in the case that it's not, you want to go and use this hack. So we're going to say zoom 1, and I'm not going to explain these in massive detail. And then we're going to put an asterisk, and we're going to say display inline. Okay, so that's going to fix up the IE problem again, browser version dependent, but that's it. Okay, so now what we want to do is go ahead and give this some padding. So we need to pad this out a bit. Now I'm going to choose some really odd measurements, and you'll see why a bit later. For the top, I'm going to give a padding of 5 pixels. For the left, I'm going to give northeast. For the right, I'm going to give 15. For the bottom, I'm going to give 4, and for the and for the left I'm going to give 15. So essentially I've got more or less the same on the top and the left, apart from I've got one less for the bottom, and that's just because the way the eye catches the menu, it will make it look, it will shift it up, it will shift it down a bit, and it will make it look a bit nicer with the text in there, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. Okay, so let's go ahead and preview this in the browser, refresh, and you can see that that's padded that out a bit more. So we've got our list elements. Let's just go and inspect each LI. You can see that we've got the padding there, so it does come right to the edge of the menu, which looks nice. It looks nice, but we haven't got anything round it yet to, wrap it up and make it, look snug each list item. But what we're going to do is we're going to style the anchor tags within the list items, or the list item elements, and we're going to make these look nice. Okay, so what we want to do is we're going to give a background to the menu. So I'm going to give a background to this of white. Let's go ahead and preview that. You can see that that's now given that a background. So it's stretched all the way to the end of the container here, and it starts here, so it's making it look a bit more contained. We're also going to go ahead and use text transform, as I briefly mentioned earlier, and we're going to set that to uppercase. Let's go ahead and refresh, and you see that the text has now been set to uppercase. What else are we going to do around here? We are going to set the border on the bottom, which is important. That's going to sort of give us a point where we can see that everything's lining up properly. So that helps at this stage to create a border on the bottom. Now remember, the border on the bottom won't interfere with the text that's currently in here. We're going to create a 3-pixel border, and it's going to come down here. So it's not going to go up into the element. And the reason that I gave a 4-pixel padding on the bottom and a 5 on the top is because once we've got this little border, it's gonna, at the moment, if you look very carefully, it looks like this text is a bit lower down, and it does look a bit odd. But once you've got that border in, you'll see that the eye shifts this text up. So it's really just being precise, but it really doesn't matter. So I'm going to set a 3-pixel border. It's obviously going to be a solid border, and I'm just going to set it to black. So when I refresh, we need border bottom, not all the way around it. Refresh. You can see that now the text it almost looks like it's, central now. It doesn't look like it's too far down. So that's the reason I did the odd padding. I did the 5 on the top and the 4 on the bottom. But again, it's entirely up to you. You could just do the 5 and the 15, in which case you would just need this declaration here, but I'm choosing 4 pixels. Okay, so that's our menu for now. Now what do we need to do? Well, we need to go ahead and style the anchor elements within the LIs. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to say menu li A, so we're targeting A elements within list elements within this menu, which is a UL. And what do we want to do to our anchor tags? Well, we want to set a color. We don't want them to be this horrible blue color, so I'm going to set them to black. I'm also going to go ahead and say text decoration none. That will just get rid of the underline. So now they will be black and with no underline. So it's already starting to look nicer without that horrible default blue colour. Now what we want to do is we want to set a line height, and what that's going to do is that's just going to widen this menu up a bit. You'll notice that if we do a height, so say if I wanted quite a high menu, let's say 15 pixel, we'll say 25 pixel, just an extreme example. Well, you've noticed that nothing's really happened. The reason for this is that you know, just the way that we've displayed everything. Instead we use line height, so I'm going to choose a line height of 1.6 EM. I think that's going to be alright, and you'll see that that just makes it a lot bigger, and it keeps this text central, whereas before it would, you know, it would stay at the top of the element. So if, for example, I set a height on this, we'll set it to 40 pixels just so you know I can show you. Now you can see that what's happened is our menu's got higher, or taller if you like, however the text has stayed at the top, and it's really awkward to get it to align, you know, vertically and centrally, so we use line height instead. So if I wanted a height of 3.6 EM, for example, you can see that the menu is now really tall but the text has stayed central. So it's a really cool trick to do the line height, and it just makes you know, everything line up a bit nicer. So our menu is already looking pretty nice. We've just got a few more adjustments to do, and one of them is the selected state. Now let's go ahead and do the selected state before we do the hover state. The reason being is that the hover state needs to override everything. In fact, no, we don't want that. We want the selected state to override, so when we hover over the text we don't want it to be that red maroon colour. So let's go ahead and do the hover first. That probably makes things easier. We can just sort of test that out. So I'm going to say menu li, yeah, and we're going to use the pseudo class hover. Now what do we want to happen when we hover? So when we hover over an li, we could say lia, but we'll just stick with li. When we hover over this, we want the colour of this to be, oh, I've just pulled that up. We want the colour of this to be maroon. Maroon. So let's go ahead and refresh. And you can see that when I hover over, oh no, sorry, we do need the A in there. It's very silly of me. Okay, so yeah, when we hover over now, you can see we've got this nice maroon colour. Not too bright, sort of blends in with the menu as well. Okay, so now what we want is we want the selected states. Now I did mention at the start of the tutorial that we had a selected state like this, class equals selected. Now what this means is that we apply this class on the back end, so in the, well, either using JavaScript or in the back end processing of our code. And what this does is it will mean that we style this tab differently, so it makes it look like it's open. You know, so at the moment we don't know which page is open, but if we have the login page open, we want a little black border around it. In fact, there's one thing I've forgotten, which is the hairline border at the top. So let's go ahead and quickly do that. So menu, just under border bottom, I'm going to say border top, 1 pixel, solid, and I'm going to choose the color DDD, which is again a grey color. So you can see that I've got the sort of hairline at the top there. It sort of contains it a bit better rather than letting the white just sort of, you know, flow out onto the page. So it contains it a bit nicer. Also, if you've got a white background, it still looks like a nice menu rather than just a black line with some text above it. Okay, so back to the selected state, which is essentially the tabs when they're open. Let's go ahead and use a selector on this. So we're going to say menu li dot selected. So this one's tricky. Well, not tricky, but it's a bit different, you know, to what we've looked at before. What we're doing is we're saying any li elements within menu where the li elements have the class selected. Now this is completely different. Just that extra space in there is completely different to li.selected. li.selected means the class selected has been applied to the li. that means the class selected within the li. So it would be another element within the li that has the class selected. So remember, you need to say li and no space dot selected. Okay, so that's quite important. Okay, so what do we want to do when the class has, when an li element has the class selected? Well, it's simple. We just want to set the background color to black. Okay, we do need to change the text color as well, but let's refresh that. We can see that we've got this black background. We also want to set the text color to white, so if I go ahead and type in color #FFF and refresh, you can see that nothing has happened. Well, the reason for that is because we've got the A inside of that. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and say dot menu menu li selected A, and we want to set that to FFF, which is white. So that changes that to white, and you'll also notice that when we hover over, we don't get the maroon up. And the reason for this is because we've got the selected here after hover. If I go ahead and place hover down here, you'll notice that this should work. When I hover over, we get that maroon color back. So it's up to you, but again, because we're using cascading style sheets, the keyword cascading gives it away. We set the hover here, but then we override it with the selected state here. And if you're interested in knowing why I haven't put background down here, let's just go and try that and refresh, and you can see that we've got this problem here, and that's because our link only works on the actual text itself. We haven't padded the link itself out to be able to go, oh well, I'll just go and click here. Maybe that's a bad idea, I don't know, but it's probably natural to hover over the text itself. Either way, you could go ahead and pad out the A element if that's preferred. Perhaps go ahead and play around with that. That's probably quite a good thing to do to get used to it. So you could pad out the A element so you've got the whole portion here as an A. But there is a trick. You'll need to set the A element or the anchor tag as display block in order to pad it out and set its height or width or whatever you want to do with it. Okay, so that just about covers our tutorial on the CSS horizontal menu. Relatively straightforward, but quite plain and nice looking menu. We've got our hover states here. We've starred it all up, and what's more is we've got the most basic markup you really would have. It looks slightly complicated if you're very new to HTML or CSS, but really we've just got a list of stuff. That's it. If we get rid of this here and we get rid of this here, all we've really got is just a list of stuff. It's just a UL, which is an unordered list, so nothing's ordered, and we've got each element inside with an anchor tag, which you're most likely used to, and then the text, and then we've starred that up using CSS. So again, if we just go ahead and get rid of this, it's quite refreshing to get rid of the style sheet and refresh and see how it looks without the styling, which is quite plain but semantically correct. So that's how to create a horizontal menu in CSS.